All right, welcome everyone with Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Fruits Basket, Season 3, Episode 5. Last episode was wonderful.
Last episode was intense, but it was very good, very satisfying with how it ended.
The curse can be broken, right? It can be frayed, it can be weakened.
It can be weakened.
Because, Akito, you suck. And you're being terrible and awful, so naturally that will have consequences. Okay.
Yeah. And here we are. We're moving through the Zodiac, it seems, tying up a lot of loose ends, resolving storylines, bringing things to completion with a lot of their relationships.
Yep.
And this is a good sign. Now, this is happening in the first half of this season.
Yeah.
Which, so far, so good. Let's have it continue.
Lots of happy stuff happening, despite some occasional complications, but so far, victory after victory, which I am all for. Let's just keep that going.
Let's keep it going. Yeah, just chugging right along. You know, just keep on going. But,
Right.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion.
Okay. All right.
MOMIJI! MOMIJI! This
I-
boy became... I mean, he was already a man.
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah.
now he's man, you know?
Like,
and
MOMIJI was already a force to be reckoned with as far as just in the social circle things and like, you know, this wonderful...
the positive
happy,
influence he had on Toru.
Exactly, right. And this wonderful, adorable, fluffy whirlwind, you know. But now he's a fluffy whirlwind that got hit by the puberty train and
The puberty train hit hard. Do you remember that point? Like, because for me, in 10 months, I think I grew like 9 inches.
yeah.
Like, there was a point where that happened for me, where it was basically just like, oh, I'm like 5'2", you know, just chilling around. And then suddenly, in like less than a year, I'm like, I'm 6 foot. What happened?
For me, it wasn't quite like that, but we would work this summer job every summer.
Right.
And specifically when I would go over and do that, I don't know why, I would grow like 3 inches during the summer and then like an inch during the whole rest of the year.
You know what it was?
And that just consistently happened for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, you know what it was, I think? Was
Yeah.
that because you were working so hard there, the time went by faster. So it's not even necessarily that you grew more than during the 9 months the rest of the year. It's the idea that you slept a lot and worked a lot.
Sure.
So the time felt like it went by like really quickly.
Right.
And then suddenly you're like, wow, I'm taller.
Yeah, but
yeah.
basically, I didn't get like an exact growth spurt. It was a more stretched out kind of a thing. But the idea that then along with the growth spurt also comes a shift in perspective from MOMIJI.
Yes.
Where he's then basically like with the growth spurt, he's sort of taken the approach of, okay, I'm now grown up.
I'm now a man.
What
I can approach Toru with some level of seriousness.
right.
But obviously, her and Kyo are a thing.
And
Kind of.
Right, and I love that was a so obviously MOMIJI loves Toru, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody loves Toru.
But
the
like,
question
Luigi
is
genuinely, really, like, sweetly loves Toru.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That wouldn't necessarily be something that would have to turn romantic.
Correct.
But
yeah.
it absolutely could at the drop of a hat. And I would say the same way that the curse can break at the drop of a hat.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yes.
And so, yeah, once, you know, the puberty train comes in and does its work and everything, and then it's wait, no, maybe I love Toru in more ways than I thought originally, right? You know, oh, okay, but she likes Kyo, and then MOMIJI uses that opportunity to go to Kyo and be like, hey, Kyo, how would you feel if that happened, right?
And we see Kyo doesn't like that.
Kyo doesn't like that, and half of it is what I love about it is that on the one hand, MOMIJI is telling Kyo, I also like Toru.
Right. Yeah.
On the other hand, he's also saying, bro,
You really like Toru.
you really like Toru. You got to do something about that.
You
right?
make her happy.
Right. Like don't just sit here and do nothing, right? And then telling Kyo specifically, my curse broke. Oh, just kidding. Still keeping the promise to Akito, kind of.
God, that's
But then by telling Kyo that, even with backpedaling afterwards and saying that it was a joke, now it it demands a response from Kyo. Now Kyo is like, wait a minute, are you serious? This is a thing that can happen? Could I theoretically be free from Akito and not need to worry about, being locked in a cage for the rest of my life?
Ugh.
Like, what?
The writing here is just brilliant because on multiple levels, these characters are getting their stories being brought up in parallel with another character, all interweaving through this zodiac, pantheon, if you will.
Sure.
We have Akito unwilling to hear the aspect of, oh, well, I don't want to hear that, I could theoretically be able to move on and go beyond this and be free and yet alone. In the same way that Kyo doesn't want to hope and hear that there's a possibility that the curse could be broken and he might actually have happiness. The part when we saw in his eyes, and I applaud the animators for doing this, it was the most imperceptible, small little just like thing of like, you don't do that to me. It's basically the thing of where someone who's being told, hey, you have a year to live, you're going to die. Like they're being like, hey, you're cured. And it's like,
just kidding.
No. Don't do that. That's cruel.
It was a bit cruel from MOMIJI, and yet I feel like it's something where MOMIJI is close enough that there could be the understanding that that wasn't done callously, right?
No, he wasn't entirely trying to debate, Kyo. He was actually genuinely trying to be like, hey, there is hope.
Right.
There is hope. Don't give up.
There might be.
Right.
Do you want to have hope with this or not?
Yeah, it's echoing the thing he said earlier. Like, don't give up. You know?
Like MOMIJI cannot. No one can force Kyo to resist. Right. They can't.
No.
But they can, plead with him. Say, hey, what if it is possible, right? And so
give me hope, basically. But let's go through a bunch of the other characters and stuff as well, because we also have Shigure, who we had in some ways probably one of the better cases for Shigure's motivations in this episode, and that we can very clearly see that he is an asshole, in the way that he does things, and he does not care at all about the short-term feelings of Akito in a lot of ways.
Right.
Not at all.
And
he is manipulating this situation so that he can end up in some ways, in a situation where the curses will get broken. That's Toru's. Toru is the curse-breaking beacon of light that is starting this domino effect of changing the whole Soma family situation. This whole thing was just an amazing domino effect in that regard. But coming in and basically having the, hey, you're going to get left behind. Basically, in some ways, trying to be this, prodding kind of, maybe even a bit, condescending bit of a warning, like a prophet coming in and being like, the end is coming. You can't stop it.
Right.
You need to just get ready, basically.
And
in some ways, he's right.
Sure.
We on a meta level know Akito is going to lose the curse. That is going to be broken.
Well, and two people have already had their curse broken anyway.
Yeah, exactly. This is happening faster and faster and faster.
And from the motivation of Shigure, it seems like it's hey, everyone else's curse gets broken and then it's just the two of us, right?
Yeah, or at the very least, trying to kind of set things up of I hope that this bond will exist beyond the curse.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we could have I feel like with this episode I saw Akito's resolution as well. Because if everyone else other than Shigure, say, ends up getting their curse broken with Akito.
Or maybe Shigure and Kyo,
I mean, sure, but point is, if it gets down to just Shigure, Shigure might not want the curse to be broken, right? Because it's I want to keep this, I want to keep this connection going or whatever, right? But then maybe at that point, once it's just down to Shigure, then Akito wants the connection broken. And then Akito can be free from Shigure.
And that would be cool in some ways because Shigure was lamenting throughout this episode in a very woe is me kind of Shigure kind of bitching, if you will. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was dumb. The ways in which he's should I have dreamed of someone else? Does that make me messed up, you know? Like
Right.
the way in which
I guess I am twisted.
Like
you know?
I guess I am twisted, and the fact that I don't feel sad about that is also twisted. Like
Right.
I liked in which
I really liked that
Yeah,
one.
that was a really cool little bit of realization for us, the audience, to be like, oh, that's where it is. Okay, cool. Because I think on some level, a lot of people have had those moments where you have a thought or a feeling, and it's one where you're like, oh, that was
Right.
weird. Why do they think or feel that? But then sometimes you have a thought or a feeling and you're like, and then your rational brain goes and is like, bro, why did you think or feel
Right.
that? And then you're like, oh, weird. I didn't see that as a negative thing. Oh,
Yeah,
that's odd.
Because there's all kinds of different, like, there's the weird thoughts that you just have in the shower where it's just like, you know, some really dark thought
really
randomly
chaotic, weird
yeah,
thing.
it just pops in your mind, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from, right? And
Yeah,
then there's
yeah.
other times where you sort of discover that there's a thought process that you sort of propagate within yourself, right?
Yeah. And you're like, oh, I
You're
didn't
right.
know that was a, oh, okay.
And probably for me, one of the things that helped ground me the most is that no matter what kind of dark places my mind would go to, if I was bothered by the fact that was happening, then it's like, okay, I know I've got a tether, right? Like, I don't like this, so I got something to work with, right? You know,
Right. I'm not crazy. It's just a thing of where like stuff
Yeah.
like that will come up and you're
the
like,
mind is weird sometimes, you know.
yeah, exactly. Like I know I know a lot of people who have had those moments where they're like, do you ever go in like train of consciousness, kind of just letting everything that you think about come out, and then you realize this is just kind of loopy weird shit. I'm not meant to actually like kind of treat all of this as seriously. Like the idea that we as beings who have, you know, the capability of imagination and, you know, incredible, you know, creative potential, what have you, will sometimes just imagine things that are just like,
Right.
that's
your
not
brain
helpful. It's just a, it's just
right,
a
your
thing,
brain
yeah.
acknowledging that something is a potential option, right? Like
Right.
the you're staring at you're at the top of a big cliff, you know, looking down, and you're like,
oh,
well,
if I jumped, then
I could jump and I would die, right?
Yeah,
It's not that you're necessarily saying I should do this, right?
But
But it's
even
the
if you want to,
right, but it's just the acknowledgement that if I were to do this and it is fully within my power to do this, that would happen.
yeah, a lot of people have
You
talked
know.
about that phenomena where it's basically I see the potential of something there, and people get confused on I think the creative kind of curiosity of like, what would my imagination be like if that happened, to thinking like, oh, this is you saying you want to do that. And it's like,
Right.
no, not necessarily. But anyway, that whole side of things there, Shigure very much is pushing in some ways for Akito to not give up in a kind of way
Right.
that like that in
Yeah.
some ways god damn it Momiji is trying to tell Kyo don't give up. And then all the way on this other side of things here, you have Shigure, who is himself affected by the light that Toru is throughout this whole thing, and has this moment of lucidity of almost like, oh shit, maybe this is something where the curse is making this be an obsessive thing, and if I had just dreamed of someone else,
right? And
I wouldn't be this way.
And there's the part of it
Shit.
that's really
And he
creepy.
can't
where
know.
Right, he can't know, and there's the part of it that's creepy because it's like, wait, what are you going to start going after Toru or something like
he's
that?
not going to start going after Toru.
But it felt to me like it was the realization of basically we're coming up on the end of the show, on the end of this journey, right? And Shigure's like, hold on a sec, I knew that Toru was here and having this wonderful, profound effect on everyone here. And yet I was so focused on Akito that I kind of didn't take advantage of that fact.
Yeah.
Like,
in a lot of ways, I think, he's lamenting and admitting his own blindness.
right.
Like,
and because of
or
how
blinders, if
right,
anything.
yeah, and because of how hard he's had the blinders on, it comes out as little more than a fleeting curiosity rather than like any sense of yearning or whatever, right? It's just a sort of
That's also a really interesting thing. He's the writer. He's the author.
Yep.
And one of the things that's very clear is that he has actually finished a work, right?
Right.
And I would have found it to be actually quite funny if the joke about Shigure is that he's never actually finished anything.
Oh, not in the time frame that his editor would like, for sure.
Yeah, that's true. But the idea in a weird comparison thing here is that the guy who has, well, probably the most kind of
Difficulty letting go.
Yeah, probably the most obsessive kind of like he's got to win. He's got to win this thing against Akito. This is a war that has some implications that could be potentially positive for Akito. In some ways, I would say they have lots of like ways that could be positive in the long term.
But that's not why Shigure is doing it,
But
as far
not,
as we know.
Well, that's not entirely why Shigure is doing it. I think that is a part of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's that when Shigure is ultimately in the future broken of the curse,
Right.
will Shigure see this as him being free or more so as Akito being free? Because there's this aspect of Shigure that feels like he's almost like cursing the fact that other people have to deal with him. And this is a weird way to take it, but do you think that he laments the fact that he is obsessed with Akito?
I think the most that we would have gotten of that was him thinking about like, oh, maybe I should have dreamt of Toru, kind of a thing. But
because this was a moment of honesty.
Right, but I don't think so really, because he seems to have very much accepted where he's at, and if anything, I could see him having the perspective currently. I don't know if that would necessarily change once the curse is broken, where it wouldn't be a thing of being free or whatever, right? That might not be how he would think of it, right? That like because of how obsessive he is, I feel like freedom wouldn't be the kind of metric that he would use, if that makes sense.
No, I think in some ways the freedom aspect of it is probably the one that was like an underlying theme throughout all of this, is the scary aspect of freedom, is that all the characters were kind of thinking about it, of like, what would it be like if I wasn't forced to basically think of Akito and those kinds of things there. And the what if I am being like, what if I'm never free? What if I'm always cursed? And I think Shigure is the one person that's got the like, no, this thing is done. It's going to be done at some point. So he's more like kind of got that perspective that it's inevitably going to be broken. So he has to have imagined or have thought about the world beyond the curse, right?
I mean, thought about it, sure, but I don't know if it would necessarily be something that he desires,
but then why is he trying so hard to break everyone else's thing? Like
isolate Akito.
Well, yeah, that's definitely part of it. But if the curse gets weaker and weaker and weaker, eventually it will affect him. Like, I don't think he's stupid enough to think that he's going to end up in a world where it's just going to be him and Akito with the curse.
I think...
Because remember, Kureno is not cursed right now.
Correct.
And Kureno is the one that's spending all the time with Akito.
Right. Well,
so I don't think he's...
The vibe that I've gotten from Shigure with regards to Akito is that it's possessive and vengeful. That it's the, like... in the same way that he slept with Akito's mother when Akito slept with Kureno, it's the, I want you to be mine, and you're not right now. And so, as a result of that, I want to make it so that you don't have anything else, so that way you come crawling back to me.
But that's the thing. That's not how that would work, because Kureno doesn't have the curse, so changing that stuff wouldn't make Akito...
Well, right. Akito wouldn't truly be alone, but maybe, who knows, maybe that's why Kureno and Shigure don't get along so well. Like, the fact that when Kureno showed up, Shigure immediately left, I feel like that was a very pointed thing that happened.
Yeah. It's because he really hates Kureno, like, really hates Kureno.
Right.
But again, the curse doesn't have anything to do with that, I think, because Kureno is the one that he knows doesn't have the curse.
Totally.
Right.
Well, but that could be the reason maybe why Shigure hates Kureno is because maybe, like, not just that Kureno is close to Akito in a way that Shigure wants to be and wants to be the only one that's close to Akito in that way, but that Shigure doesn't have a way of making Kureno actually be distanced from Akito.
Right, and that's why I think on like a level you're right, that it's a more of a vengeful thing and that he's trying to, in some ways, make Akito break the curse by instigating all these specific things, and then also having all the other characters end up doing things that will end up breaking the curse.
Right.
That will then, in some ways, free them all, and thus it will be a thing where, at the very least, Akito won't necessarily at that point, like, need... Like, it won't be an isolating thing. It'll be more of a, Akito won't necessarily feel the spiritual pressure of what it is to be the center point of the curse. Because I feel like that's what they're setting up with the dad here, is that the dad put the curse on Akito in the literal, like
you were my offspring kind of a thing, or
right. In the literal spiritual sense of how this world works, but also in the literal sense of here is your burden of expectation. I'm going to put your identity on you.
This is who you are.
Yeah, you don't have a choice to go beyond outside these bounds of this room, essentially, here. And Shigure is trying to be like, you need to be willing to go outside the bounds of this room.
I feel like Shigure, if more than anything, has been reinforcing that. Like the times
so
in
that
which
it will break.
No, right, yeah, because like if I were to try and put myself
that's the Machiavellian scheming thing at the very end.
Exactly, because while we still don't have like a perfect up close view of Shigure and his like exactly the way he thinks and everything, we're getting closer.
We could use more backstory.
Right, we could use more backstory. But if I were to think about where Shigure's at right now from my perspective, if it were to be something where Akito had the curse broken with everyone but Shigure, that could be a potential point of leverage even over Kureno, in that Shigure is the only one who stayed, right? You know, something like that, right? And now they are bound together by something that Kureno could never hope to compete with because, well, the curse broke for him, right? And that could maybe be the point in which Shigure's thinking is flawed, because then it's not you have the bond and therefore that makes it better. No, it's the bond was given up, the bond was broken, and yet Kureno's still there, right?
Okay, yeah.
But I don't know. We'll have to see.
I just really loved in this episode how so many of the characters had their through lines of their story connected with another character in the story who was dealing with a very similar situation, and they used it to kind of point out specific things to the audience. And it's just really cool dual kind of parallel focus writing, and I love it when you have an ensemble cast where you can easily do this without much scaffolding that needs to be kind of put into place to make it work. It's like, oh no, this feels natural. It's quite fast paced, I would say, but like that's still just something they're able to do because of all the build up that's happened over the course of the last 2 seasons. So, all right, hell yeah. Let's have just shenanigans with Toru and company, and
that's right.
Don't give up, Kyo. Don't give up. I also just really love the little goofy moment with Machi.
That was great.
Lightning fast.
And showing all the different couples thinking about the whole idea of okay, we are still part of the Zodiac and everything. How does that affect things? Even down to Ayame and Mine, who I would have thought, they would be so tight, there would be absolutely nothing that could potentially come between them. But there was some distance there. There were some things that
he's cursed.
Right, he's cursed. So how do you deal with that?
How do you share with someone that you have a bond of your soul and spirit to another person, and you're like, but I wish to be romantically, entangled fully with you.
Right.
And it's like, I can't do that fully because there's literally a thing that keeps me tethered back to something else. So, can any of these characters, especially Akito, experience any kind of real love
Sure.
in these kinds of instances
Yep.
here. Now, on some level, Akito can be in the presence of someone wishing to give love.
Kureno, I would say, is a great example.
Kureno is, Kureno is trying.
Yeah,
Kureno is not a, like
there's only so much that Kureno can do.
there's only so much that Kureno can do. Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
But eventually, Akito, we know that you hear this in the stuff that Momiji was saying.
Right.
But all it takes really is you to not put your hands up to your ears. For you to keep listening to it, to seek that thing out. There's nothing literally, as far as we know, there's nothing literally physically keeping you here. Now, there's a possibility that it's something that's like, it's very strenuous for Akito to literally leave the Soma estate and what have you. That's why the whole beach thing was maybe a big one-time thing or what have you.
There could be, but I could also see it being something where, because of the role that he inhabits as the
she inhabits,
yeah, as the god of the zodiacs, as the head of the Soma family, then as a result of the bonds that are there, it only makes sense to stay in the same kind of location. That way, it's easy for the people with the bonds to return to you. Right? Like if Akito buggered off to somewhere else, and then it's like, oh, we have this bond, but sorry, we don't know where you are, Akito.
I know. But I'm talking about the idea that Akito could go to Toru again. And I very much see that as being a thing that will start off as negative if Akito does this.
Sure.
And I'm very worried for Toru if that happens. But I could also see this being a positive at some point in the future, where Akito basically leads a procession, if you will, of the few remaining that are, cursed still.
Sure.
And is like, please,
break this.
yeah, help me.
Like
I'm really excited for Akito especially to have the curse be broken, because this season has really, really layered on the stuff that was built up in season 2. That Akito didn't want this.
Nope.
This is not
choose this.
This is not Akito's choice.
Right. If I were to, as fantastic as this episode was, if I were to say a favorite conversation from this episode, I think it would be not when Akito and Momiji were talking at
the very end,
when the curse broke, but later the next day when Momiji goes back and talks to Akito.
Well, yeah, that part was amazing.
That was so good. Like the stuff that Momiji was saying was was actual gold, and Akito did not cover her ears right away. She didn't like what she was hearing, but
she did listen.
She did listen for a bit, and I feel like Akito has a good enough head on her shoulders that she will at the very least realize that the things that she has been doing up until now are not working. And so it is in her best interest to reevaluate,
Yeah, and that's scary. Because
that could take it in some very nasty directions.
We have seen the ways that Akito reacts to certain things, and there are more and more people that will be joining the Protect squad because they are physically capable,
Oh yeah,
but as that number gets bigger, I could totally see Akito pulling the ripcord in a not so good way.
Yeah,
and
the more this goes on, though, the less I'm worried about Akito.
Oh yeah, exactly. I more just pity Akito.
Yeah.
But okay,
here we are.
Here we are. Are there any patterns from the way that Kureno's curse was broken with the Momiji's curse breaking? It's both at night, right?
Well,
no, they weren't both at night.
No, not both at night. But the pattern that I think can be brought up is that it was something that seemed potentially casual. Hatsuharu's curse didn't break in the previous episode. It frayed.
Yes.
Momiji's, which was shown to be frayed already, good to know, snapped. I think that might be something where it goes to show that it's not necessarily something that can be fought against and overcome, but it's something that's kind of more let go of. right? And then all of a sudden it's not there anymore, right?
Ooh.
Like,
ooh, yeah. Your idea of like it's not about fighting it; it's about letting go. There's an aspect of Kyo that is basically the one that will stubbornly resist, right? And yet, in some ways, he's also the one that's given up and let go of the hope for a future with Toru in a lot of ways. So, in some ways, what you could say here to flip this is then it's about letting go of the curse, basically, or what have you, the bond, but it's about being willing to look into the future as a new person. It's not like just an identity shift, but it's a form of that. Because I think that's possibly a pattern for Kureno, and we saw it quite literally with Momiji.
Right. Momiji's change in perspective definitely was affected by the fact that the curse broke. But the fact that Momiji ended up in this kind of very good mental place by the end of this episode means that there was a decent portion of that was there, I would guess, before the curse was broken.
Yeah.
And so then that could be also a clue for how the curse ends up breaking. I do really like my sort of like Zen Kureno theory, where like that's sort of how it ended up happening for him. But I feel like that if there were to be a connection between the two cases that we've seen, I think that would be it. That Momiji got to the point where he was like, you know what? I'm going to make my own family, right? I'm going to go on my own adventure with the people that I can call family, right? Like that's the kind of thing where there's no room for a curse in there. Even if on a technical level, Momiji was still under the effects of the curse in that moment, the curse does not exist in that statement, right?
It's like a bond that is for all of them, and Momiji was willing to say, it's not just that I want to resist you, Akito, or I want to let go of you. It's I'm comfortable being alone. I'm comfortable letting this be just me.
Yeah, like the fact that Momiji was able to talk about it so plainly with Akito, even though, right when it happened,
that was
like,
the curse.
This is not the time. I'm a bit emotional right now.
Right. This was Momiji having spent a whole night probably thinking about
processing
this,
and everything.
Didn't arrive at school on time because he stayed up all night.
Exactly, right. But then he was able to have that conversation with Akito, and it was not some tortured thing or anything, right? Like. And who knows how much of that was because the curse was broken versus Momiji's change in perspective that allowed the curse to be broken or something. But here we are.
Yeah. Here we are.
Okay.
And, this is a shorter season, so
yep.
coming up on the halfway
we
point.
could keep doing stuff like this.
I would love that. I would really love that. Yeah. And keeping it focused on the non-Kyo Yuki duo for this part here.
I think that's a good idea.
Also, a very good idea to make it feel like it's this escalation towards the main cast, And it's really cool.
And if it ends up being something where it's more one at a time, the curse being broken, rather than like all at once at the end, that gives us a lot of opportunities to really focus on why the curse breaks for each person, what that means, and
lots of interactions.
Yep. And that will change things for Akito because if Akito had the curse to everyone being broken at the same time, I could imagine that would kind of break her, right?
Yeah.
But if it's one by one, and it's sort of like this slow realization that this is happening.
Yeah. You know who'd be cool to have next be the one that breaks it is Kagura.
I could really go for a Kagura episode.
Yeah, or maybe Hiro and Kisa.
Hiro and Kisa would be good.
They've been getting some really cool focus.
They have been getting some fantastic focus. So I could definitely see that happening.
I'm gonna put my vote into the hat for either the two of them together or Kagura.
I really like the Kagura one because I feel like she's been out of the story long enough that we could get like a surprise Kagura shows up.
Yeah, she was mostly just worried about Rin a couple episodes ago. But yeah.
So like if she made a like surprise reappearance into the story and got her curse broken, I feel like that would fit with what Momiji had for this episode.
And it fits a little bit in the tie-in of Momiji being one that's connected to the Kyo Toru relationship because Kagura also has her own unique connection in that regard. But yeah,
yeah,
y'all, Fruits Basket.
Oh,
Thank you so
boy.
much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
Next time.